Okay, we are back for another update on the 5 plants that I have growing in living soil fabric pots. We're on the right side of the 4x8 grow tent. For those that have tuned in on last week's episode, we were on the left side of the 4x8 grow tent. If you missed that episode, I'll definitely have it linked in the outro card of this video. Now, these plants that are growing with organic inputs, they're 10-gallon living soil fabric pots. There's a couple things that have surprised me about it, and I want to go through that in this episode, along with just everything in regards to an update. We'll go over the soil, nutrition, watering, lighting, and so much more. So we're going to get into it all right now. But first, I want to give a shout out to AC Infinity. They are a sponsor of the channel. They're sponsoring this video. I'm using their tent here, beautiful tent. I've got their controller, oscillating fans. We went over their humidifier in the last video, and they are kind enough to hook up my viewers with a discount code. You can use code MrGrow at 15, and that code works on both Amazon as well as their website. So feel free to use that code if you are making a purchase, and you can save a few dollars off at checkout. Let's start off with talking about the environment. So conditions I have going on right now is actually pretty similar. I've had this door open for so long, it's similar to what my lung room is, but typically it's been around 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It's lights on temperature. Lights off has been between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. As far as the percentage of relative humidity, we're looking at 66% is what's showing right now. But more importantly, kPa, so VPD, it's been around 1.2 to 1.4 kPa, which is pretty dialed in for the flowering stage. That's what I like it to be, which is usually in the dark green range according to the VPD chart. So we're looking really good there. So that's the environment. Shifting over to talking about the plants. I'm getting blinded here. I forgot to put my glasses on, so let me do that before I get called out in the comments. Let me scoot up a chair and get nice and comfy. We've got 5 different plants in here. They're on day 14 of the flowering stage, and we've got a wide variety of genetics in here. Some are growing better than others in regards to how fast they're growing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, starting off with Bruce Banner number 3 by Dark Horse Genetics. This is one that has surprised me. We're talking about surprises in this video. This is one thing that's staying small. I didn't really know much about Bruce Banner number 3 prior to growing this. I just heard so much about Bruce Banner in past years and a lot of hype behind it. And so I wanted to grow it out on my own. I didn't realize it was more of a squattier. Maybe it's just a particular pheno that I'm growing that is making it stay squat, but I was a little bit surprised about that. We also have the No Joke by Chad Westport. This one's staying pretty small as well. I guess it's certainly bigger than the Bruce Banner. It's close to this lemon mandarin, which we'll talk about afterwards, but this one is also more squattier, tighter internodes, which is actually a good thing in my opinion. These other plants I'm growing last week, for those of you who tuned in, longer internodes, real stretchier strain, probably going to be finicky towards the end of flowering when the buds are on there and they're so heavy they're flopping all over the place. This I actually like when the plants are a little bit smaller like this, easier to manage. They're going to require less support as far as like training and stuff. Maybe I'll just add in a couple stakes later on in flowering if I feel like the buds are starting to flop over, add in a couple stakes for support. But small structure isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that kind of surprised me, particularly with that Bruce Banner. Now, if I had a chill out OG growing in here, it'd probably be the same size as that Bruce Banner. That is something that in its genetics and how I bred it down to the F3s, F4s, it stays squattier. And that's not a bad thing, especially for those folks that are growing in small spaces. You want the plant to stay small, to stay squatty, because you've got space constraints. But yeah, this Bruce Banner number 3, this is something that kind of surprised me a little bit, how it is the smallest plant out of the bunch, but again, not necessarily a bad thing. Really excited about the No Joke by Chad Westport. I saw so much beautiful pictures online. Bud porn is just absolutely gorgeous. I actually had the chance to consume No Joke, had some flower from Chad himself at the DGC Cup earlier this year. It was freaking so good. Very stony high for me. Here we have the Lemon Mandarin. This is by 420 Fast Buds. I've never grown out of 420 Fast Buds, any genetics from them before. It's my first time growing them. I've heard a lot of bad things about 420 Fast Buds, if we're being honest. People just rip them apart because they say there's a lack of flavor that happens. Now, I had that feedback before I even planted this plant. I'm not the type just to take somebody's word for it and then just kind of regurgitate that as a future. I want to actually grow this plant, get some experience myself, and then me make the personal determination on it. That's just me. We'll see how that turns out. This is actually a photoperiod plant. All of them are photoperiod plants. The 420 Fast Buds, they're known for auto flowers. They do have photos, so I figured I'd call that one out. In the back corner to the right, we've got Hulk's Breakfast. That's by iCan Seeds. So shout out to Matt, iCan THC. First time growing out his genetics, and that one seems to be the most vigorous out of the bunch. It's growing pretty rapidly, and it's a much bigger plant than the other plants that are in that same grow space. So really happy with how that one is looking so far. And then the last one in the back left corner, that's Nerd's Rope S1 by Elevate Seeds. And that's another one similar to Chad's No Joke. Beautiful pictures, beautiful plant all around as far as its morphology, how it's expressing itself. So I'm really looking forward to see how that one develops here. But overall, everything is very healthy within the grow space. Now, like I mentioned, they're in 10-gallon living soil fabric pots. These are the ones with the liner on the inside. It's a liner all the way down to about here, and then the bottom 3-4 inches is going to be just fabric. So it's not like your typical fabric pot to where it's drying out from all the sides. And that's helpful when you're growing organically to have it dry from top down instead. Although with organic growing, keeping the medium moist at all times is beneficial because you want those amendments to break down. You need those microbes to be active. They're active when there's water in there. When the medium's dry, they're not active. So keeping a constant moisture level in there, having that liner around there, it's definitely helpful on that avenue. The soil is reused soil. It's my 7th run in the same soil. Super proud to talk about that. Years ago, I didn't even know that you could reuse soil over and over again for this long. And ever since I started using this soil and reusing it over and over again, it's just been getting better every single run. And that's another thing that has surprised me is just, I don't have to amend as often. I did an initial amending with the Bill Soil Craft Blend, and then I've only done one top dressing since then. I flipped a flower and did one top dressing, and I don't think I'm gonna have to top dress for the rest of the grow. Now I am doing stash blend every other week, but other than that, I don't think I'm gonna have to add any more amendment. Now I did run out of amendments, full disclosure. The pack 3 plants got that Kiss Organics Bloom Booster, so that's geared towards the flowering phase. The bag I think was only 3.2 pounds or something like that, so I ran out of it. The front 2 plants I had to put Kiss Organics Nutrient Pack in there. And the last update I did on these plants, one thing I mentioned is, yeah, I've run Kiss Organics Nutrient Pack throughout the whole grow before, and I got some good results, but it seemed like the leaves stayed dark even towards the final weeks of the grow. Usually you want to see some sort of fade happening, senescence, a natural change in the leaves. They'll go from the green to, you'll see like yellowing, orange, purple, black. You can see a combination of colors that happen in the final weeks of the grow. It's just naturally what happens with cannabis. And using the Kiss Organics Nutrient Pack, I wasn't really getting that. It was usually, I think I was harvesting when the plants were still green. I was like, wish I got a good fade. Didn't really think anything of it. I'm hoping with this Bloom Booster, using something that has less nitrogen in it, I'm hoping towards the end of the grow, we're gonna get that some of that fade, some of those colors to come out. So it'll be interesting to see in future videos, as this grow goes along, how the back 3 plants compare to the front 2 plants, since there are different amendments in there. So we'll wait and see. In regards to the lighting, Grandmaster LEDs, I talked about them in the last update. Really happy with how this light is working so far. It is an absolute tank, but having the ability to spectrum tune is my first time using some sort of spectrum tuning light to this capacity. I have on the side here, it tells you exactly what to do on each of the weeks. So for all of veg, I had cool white 100%. First week of flower, it says cool white 100%, warm white 100%, then dim down the light to the desired PPFD that you want. Now, for me, it was a little bit easy because I was able to dial down the warm white to probably about 10-20%, dial down the cool white 10-20%, so they're even, and that gave me a PPFD right here is about 750. The light spread on this, I gotta say, is incredible. The uniformity across as far as the light emitting down onto the footprint, incredibly even, so I gotta call that one out as a plus. So as this plant over here is higher, that one is actually getting about 850 PPFD. It's close to 900. And so having these plants kind of different heights, that is throwing off the amount of light that they're receiving, the amount of power that they're receiving, but I'm okay with that. I'm on a 12-12 light cycle, 12 hours with lights on, 12 hours of complete darkness. Going back down to the soil, some of you may have noticed I added in a mulch layer. So we've got barley straw here, and I really wanted to add this in to try to prevent bare soil from happening. Now, some of you, if you missed that last grow update that I did on these, I had a cover crop, had a 12 seed blend cover crop that grew up. It didn't grow up as nicely as I'd want, but I still was able to cut it back, have a layer on as a mulch layer on there. But as the leaves kind of shriveled up and died, I ended ended up adding in this mulch layer, and this is going to help with water retention. So living in a very dry climate, one of the things I battle is really getting the soil to dry out too quickly, especially that topsoil where those amendments are that I top dressed. If that area becomes dry, well, the microbes aren't working to break down those nutrients, and the nutrients aren't being available for the plant to uptake. So having a top layer, I figured it'd be beneficial to add in this mulch layer to try to make sure that moisture retention is happening below that mulch layer. So everything is looking good so far. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this update. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. Catch you in the next one. Peace out, everyone.